Welcome to today's class, guys. So these are the tools we need to make our full scale bodice, okay, and then your measurement, very necessary. So the first step is I'm going to mark my front half length, okay. So my front half length is 16, so I'm going to mark it. All right, so go ahead and mark that on your paper as well. Then I'll mark my back half length, which is 15. Okay, yours can be more or lesser. Okay, so that's just it. And then I'll connect the dots that I have made. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so step 2, we're going to move over to step 2 now. And step 2 is I'm going to mark my waist to hip. My waist to hip is 9 inches. It can be 7 for yours, it can be 8, it can be 9, it can be 10. It all depends on the height of your client or the position of the hip. Okay, I'll do that for the back as well. I'll mark my waist to my hip line, and then that's just it. I'll connect it. So you go ahead and do that step 2 as well. So the next step is to get a half body measurement. Okay, my biggest body measurement is my hip, so I'm using the hip, half of my hip, okay, to get it. So that's what you mark. If your hip is 34, you use 17. If your hip is 40, you use 20. Now divide that half hip into 2. Okay, that's 1/4 of your hip, and then you go ahead and mark it. That's just basically what I'm doing. So I'm dividing the half body measurement into two equal parts, okay, so that we can get our front and our back as well. So I'll go ahead and connect the dots that I have made. So you can see that's just basically it. So this becomes our back and this becomes our front. So we're going to connect this line so that it will just get to the edge. Okay, that's just all, and then we move over to drafting the front. So to get started, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 14, so I'm marking 7. And then I'll take my neck width and depth 3 inches and depth 3 inches as well. Then on my shoulder measurement, I'll mark 1 inch for slant, and then I'll mark 7 inches, which is my shoulder measurement. So that's 8 inches all together, and I'm marking it at the edge too, so I can connect it and get a perfect square line. Okay, and then I'll connect my shoulder slant of 1 inches to my neck width, and then from my neck width I'll connect to my depth. Please take note of how I'm using my pattern master to make my curve. Okay, I'm using a fine curve to connect the neck, so it won't be too deep or too narrow. So now I'm placing my shoulder measurement once again so I can connect and get a perfect square. Remember, the aim is to get a perfect square on that part. Okay, I'm getting half of this point. Okay, and on that half I'll go in by 0.75 inches, and from the top point of 1 inch slant I'll connect it this way. And then I'm going to get my bust measurement. Okay, so go ahead, mark your bust measurement, and then watch how I'm going to connect to my bust measurement. Okay, so this forms our armhole. You can see, so we have a perfect armhole curve right now. So moving over to our waist, my waist is 6 inches. I added 1 inch for that is 7 inches, and I'll go ahead and connect it as well. And then I'll go ahead and connect. Already we have our hip. Okay, so we're not placing hip measurement anymore, so just go ahead and use your curve the way I'm using mine and connect to the hip. because we already used our hip to divide, so there's no need placing hip measurements anymore. So we're going to place our dart, and to place your dart, you get your nipple to nipple measurement or your bust span, okay, and then you go ahead and mark 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, mark your nipple to nipple or your bust span measurement, then mark 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, I'll go again, mark your bust span measurement, okay, then 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, that's just basically what I did. And then from your shoulder, I'm going to get my shoulder to my bust point measurement. Okay, mine is 9 inches, so just mark yours and then connect it this way. Then on that point, on that shoulder to bust point, I'll mark my nipple to nipple measurement again, and I'll connect it this way, and I'll connect my dart leg this way as well. Okay, so going over to the lower part, to the hip side, I'll come up by 2 inches from the hip, okay, because we don't need the dart to get to our hip. Okay, so that's just it. All right, so go ahead and do that, and then also mark your bust span measurement once again and connect it just so you get a perfect straight line. Okay, and then we're going to also connect our dart legs as well. So half scale measurement pattern for the front is almost complete. Now you can see that our front is longer than our back, so we are going to align it. So when you sew your dress, it's going to align. So to align it, I'm just going to go to my bust span measurement, come down by 1 inch and connect it. If yours is 2 inches, come down by 2 inches. If it's 1.5, come down by 1.5. Now we are going over to our back bodice. Okay, we are not using this area, we're just using here. Okay, so first thing to do is to mark your shoulder measurement. Just take note of where I'm placing my tape from. Okay, so place your shoulder measurement, your neck width, which is 3 inches, and your neck depth, I'm using 1 inch. You can use 1.5. And I'll go ahead and connect my neck. Okay, so that's just it, using my curve once again. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my 1 inch slant, just like we did for our front. Okay, 1 inch slant. Okay, from that 1 inch slant, you place your shoulder measurement, which everything now is 8 inches. So I'm marking it across at the other end, so it gives us a perfect square, and I'll connect it. We're just basically repeating the things we did at the front for the back. Okay, but the armhole won't be the same. So mark 7 inches once again, just like we did for the front, and connect it. That 7 inches is your shoulder measurement. Okay, now I'm going to get the midpoint of what I have here, and then I'll go in by 1/2 inch. For the front, I went in by 0.5, but for the back, I'm going in by 1/2 inch. And then this is my bust measurement, and then I'm going to connect my bust measurement to that 0.5 inch, then to my 1 inch slant. Okay, just watch how I'm doing it. This is very easy to do. Okay, this is very easy. So the upper part is complete now, and we're going over to our waist. So mark your waist. My waist, I'll mark my waist. Okay, 6 inches plus 1 inch for my dart, so everything is now 7 inches. So I'll connect to the 7 inches mark. Okay, that's just it, and then connect back to my hip. Okay, but remember, we're not placing hip measurement because we've already divided with our hip, which is the biggest body measurement that I have here. Okay, now that's it. We're going to place our darts now, and to do that, I'll place my bust span measurement and mark 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, on the hip, I'll come up by 2 inches this way. Okay, and I'll connect it. That's because I don't want my darts to get to my hip. All right, now on that new line, I'm going to mark my bust span measurement, and on my chest line, I'll mark my bust point, my bust span measurement, and I'll connect a straight line. Then I'll go ahead and connect my dart legs this way. Okay, so just watch what I did here, and then go ahead and do yours too. So that's just basically it. Okay, now we're going to add our zip allowance. I'm adding 1 inch to the neckline. On the waist, I'll share the 1 inch into 2 and mark ½ inch on both sides, just this way. And then on the hip, I'll mark 1 inch. Okay, I'll go over it again. On the neckline part, I marked 1 inch. On the waist, I've shared it ½ inch on both sides. Okay, this is my waist. I mark ½ inch on both sides. Okay, I shared the 1 inch, and then on the hip I still marked my 1 inch. Okay, that's just it. So I'll go ahead and connect it. Okay, first I'll square my neck out straight, and then I'll connect it just this way, following the points that I have made. Okay, so that's why I shared that 1 inch on my waist, is so that I will eliminate my zip bulge. Okay, so on the side now, I'll also connect it back. So sharing it, you've eliminated your zip bulge. Okay, so that's just it. You've contoured your back to remove zip bulge, so your zip will lay flat anytime you fix your zip on your blouse. Okay, so that's just it. So this is what we have now. This is our back. Okay, now I'm just going to do a small slant by the side, just to have a fine curve. I don't know if you've seen those blouses with nice fine curve by the side. So I just went up by 1 inch for the front and back, and then I connected it this way. You can do 2 inches, you can do 1.5. You can also decide to leave it that way. It's all up to you. I just decided to make that fine curve on that area. So this is our back and our front. Okay, so I'm going to use zigzag marks on the areas that we have here. I use it on my zip allowance. I'll use it on my darts as well. Okay, at the front I'll use it on my darts as well, and I'll also use it on my bust darts. Okay, so that's just it. So the next step is just to cut this out, and our full scale bodice is all ready. Now let's through our darts, and to through our darts, you fold it. Okay, using your ruler, you mark so you can get your point. You can do this with your tracing wheel. It's much easier using a tracing wheel. Okay, so now I'm using my marker to connect the point that I have there. Okay, so that's basically how to through your dart. If you don't know how to through your dart, that's how to through it. Okay, so you don't have any shortages anywhere. All right, so that's it guys. Thank you for staying with me to the end of this class. Thank you so much. Leave me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, please like and share with your friends. This is just it. So when you close your bust dart, this is what you're going to get. You can see your front and your back is now equal. You can use this pattern to make whatsoever your blouse. You can transfer your dart manipulation and all of that. So see you next time. Thank you for staying with me. Bye.